In 1885, the brutal colonial European world witnessed something earlier unknown. Instead of colonizing Congo, King Leopold II of Belgium added Congo to his personal possession. Unlike what the European powers had been doing until then, King Leopold II took atrocities to another level. Instead of being bound by laws, King Leopold II was the master of Congo, doing whatever he wanted. For the world, he was bringing civilization to Congo, a racist belief at that time that African countries are uncivilized. However, under this impression, King Leopold II wanted to have a land where he could rule with an iron fist, killing people at will and extracting resources for his personal wealth. That's why half of the population of Congo died either due to punishments or diseases. Considerable numbers of the ones left had their hands or feet amputated as punishment for not working enough for the king's profits. But what are those chilling atrocities that were carried out in Congo by Belgian forces, on the orders of Belgium's King Leopold II? Let's know about it. Even before assuming the throne of Belgium in 1865, King Leopold II was already actively engaged in efforts to convince prominent Belgian politicians to establish a colonial presence in the Far East or Africa to expand and elevate Belgian prestige. Until the latter part of the 19th century, the Congo Basin remained largely unexplored by Europeans due to the challenges posed by the dense rainforests and swamps and tropical diseases like malaria and sleeping sickness. But in 1876, King Leopold II of Belgium initiated the International African Association, collaborating with renowned African explorers and securing support from various European governments to facilitate exploration and colonization efforts in Africa. Eventually, Henry Morton Stanley's successful exploration of the region further spurred Leopold's interest, leading him to enlist Stanley's aid for his own ambitions in the area. Leopold II had long harbored ambitions of establishing a Belgian colony but faced little encouragement from the Belgian civil government. Undeterred, he decided to pursue his imperial dreams independently. Amidst European rivalry in Central Africa, tensions arose, especially regarding the Congo Basin, which no European power had formally claimed. To address this, Otto von Bismarck orchestrated the Berlin Conference in November 1884, aiming to reach a peaceful resolution. While the conference did not officially endorse the territorial claims of European powers, it established guidelines to ensure conflict-free division of the region, designating the Congo Basin as a free trade zone. You see, that's how European colonizers used to do things. They would sit together and decide who would take what part of the earth, without asking or involving the people of that land. Following the Berlin Conference, Leopold II gained significant territory for his personal control, which he organized as the Congo Free State through his non-governmental organization, the International African Association. Operating as a corporate state, the Congo Free State became a scene of appalling human suffering under Leopold's rule. The ruthless exploitation, combined with the introduction of new diseases due to European contact, caused an immeasurable loss of life, exacerbated by the brutal tactics of Leopold's private army, the Force Publique. The Force Publique terrorized the local population, extracting resources through forced labor and indiscriminately killing and abusing the native inhabitants. However, colonization was met with skepticism in Belgium, as it was seen as a risky and costly industry with no apparent benefit to the country. Leopold's attempts to persuade politicians encountered limited success. That's why he had Congo as his private property, with no interference from the Belgian government. The excuse given by King Leopold II to privately colonize Congo was to provide humanitarian aid and introduce civilization to the indigenous population. But the world saw in the upcoming decade that the exact opposite was done. King Leopold II even carried out atrocities nobody had imagined at that time. At the Berlin Conference of 1884-85, European leaders officially acknowledged Leopold's authority over the nominally independent Congo Free State, surrounding an expanse of 2,350,000 square kilometers. The recognition was based on the premise that this region would serve as a free trade area and a buffer state between the British and French spheres of influence. Within the Free State, Leopold held absolute personal control with limited delegation to subordinates. Administrative staff and officials were consistently in short supply, numbering between 700 and 1,500 during that period. During the early years of the Free State, Much of the administration's efforts were directed towards consolidating control by engaging in conflicts with African communities at the borders who resisted the Free State's authority. While managing conflicts, the Belgian authorities were in Congo to do only one thing: ensure substantial profits for its investors, notably King Leopold II. However, early challenges arose as the reliance on ivory exports failed to meet expectations, causing financial instability and near-default situations for the colonial administration. A turning point emerged with the escalating demand for natural rubber in the 1890s. Leveraging this opportunity, the Free State enforced forced labor on Congolese men, compelling them to collect wild rubber for export to Europe and North America. The name of the country, the Congo Free State, was ironic because it was neither free nor a state, but a colony, and the private property of King Leopold II. In 1891, the domain system was introduced to streamline economic operations in the region, leading to the partitioning of land. This system classified all unoccupied land, including forests and uncultivated areas, as uninhabited, falling under the direct authority of the state. This policy effectively placed numerous resources, particularly rubber and ivory, under direct colonial ownership. Various private companies were granted concessions, with the Société Anversoise acquiring 160,000 square kilometers in the north, and the Anglo-Belgian India Rubber Company, ABR, securing a comparable territory in the south. Smaller concessions were allocated to the Compagnie du Katanga and the Compagnie des Grands Lacs in the south and east, respectively. King Leopold II retained personal control over 250,000 square kilometers of land under the name of the Crown Domain, which was added to the territory already under his control as the private domain. Consequently, much of the economic exploitation within the Congolese interior was overseen by King Leopold II and the major concessionaires. The concession system proved to be highly profitable, with ABR reporting a turnover exceeding 100% on its initial investment within just 1 year. King Leopold II amassed 70 million Belgian francs in profits from the system between 1896 and 1905. The success of the Free State's concession model inspired fraud by other colonial regimes, notably those neighboring the French Congo. But King Leopold II was not satisfied with it, so he initiated an era of atrocities. Between 1885 and 1908, a series of heinous atrocities were committed in the Congo Free State. These atrocities were linked to labor practices aimed at harvesting natural rubber for export. Compounded by rampant disease outbreaks, famine, and a plummeting birth rate as a result of these disruptions, the atrocities led to a drastic decline in the Congolese population. The scale of the population decline remains a point of contention, with modern estimates ranging widely from 10 million to 15 million. Initially, the quasi-colony proved financially unsustainable, teetering on the brink of bankruptcy. However, the surge in demand for natural rubber in the 1890s triggered a dramatic shift. The companies exploited the concessions without restraint, employing forced labor and violent coercion to cheaply harvest rubber and maximize profits. The labor policies were enforced by the Free State's military force, the force publique, leading to brutal consequences such as the cutting of workers' hands, which gained international notoriety. An international outcry against the Congo Free State gained momentum, led by the British activist Edie Morel, eventually leading to the annexation of the Congo Free State by the government of Belgium on the 15th of November 1908. However, only the name had changed, with Belgium still sitting as the master. Atrocities were unchecked during the exploitative red rubber system, which forcibly subjected laborers to harsh conditions in the pursuit of maximizing rubber extraction. The system, commonly criticized as the red rubber system, relied on the coerced mobilization of labor by the administration, under the guise of taxation. This practice effectively fostered a slave society, as companies increasingly depended on forcibly mobilizing Congolese labor to collect rubber. To manage local labor, the state enlisted black officials, although the centrally enforced demands often neglected the well-being and numbers of workers, focusing solely on rubber collection and the state's profits. The lack of a well-established bureaucratic system to monitor commercial practices created an environment of informality that enabled widespread abuses. Laborers, who were often compensated with meager items such as cloth, beads, salt, or knives, were subject to harsh treatment and coercion. Dissenters faced brutal consequences, including beatings and whippings with heavy leather whips, while punitive expeditions were dispatched to destroy villages that resisted. Yes, Complete genocides were carried out as a common practice. The impact of this policy was devastating, resulting in the collapse of Congolese economic and cultural life and the disruption of farming in various regions. Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and identity. Let's continue now. Enforcement of the rubber production quota primarily fell under the jurisdiction of the Force Publique, the colonial military force established in 1885. Comprising a blend of white officers, non-commissioned officers, and Black privates recruited from various regions, the Force Publique employed specific ethnic and social demographics, including the Bangala. Notably, the so-called Zapo-Zaps, known for their brutality and rumored cannibalistic practices, frequently abused their authority to capture slaves. By 1900, the Force Publique boasted a considerable force of 19,000 men. Additionally, private militias hired by rubber companies often collaborated with the Force Publique to enforce their exploitative rule. The red rubber system persisted from 1891 until 1906, localized predominantly in the Equateur, Bandundu, and Kasai regions, where its detrimental impact on the local population was acutely felt. Failure to meet rubber collection quotas in the Congo Free State often resulted in severe repercussions, including death. The Force Publique, the state's military force, adopted a gruesome practice of presenting severed hands as evidence, fearing potential misuse of imported ammunition for purposes other than enforcement. This brutal system created a disturbing cycle where severed hands were exchanged for rubber, symbolizing the extreme brutality prevailing in the Congo Free State. Historical records detail the inhumane actions under the rule of despised state official Leon Fieves. One appalling incident saw captured natives forced into a net with heavy stones before being thrown into the river under Fieves's command. Similarly, soldiers were directed to display the heads of men on village palisades and arrange women and children in the form of a cross as punishment for a protesting village. The collection of severed hands served as a gruesome form of currency, indicating the depth of violence and exploitation in the Congo Free State. Force Publique soldiers often substituted hands for rubber at the stations, with the number of hands collected influencing their bonuses, leading to widespread mutilations. Various survivors' testimonies reveal instances where individuals pretended to be dead during massacres, enduring the horror of having their hands mutilated before seeking help once the soldiers had departed. It is said that Leopold II opposed mutilation, not because of his humanity, but considering it harmful to his economic interests. His alleged statement, "Cut off hands. That's idiotic. I'd cut off all the rest of them, but not hands. That's the one thing I need in the Congo," highlights a callous disregard for human suffering, even within the already brutal landscape of the Congo Free State. However, when mutilation did not create fear in the native population, to compel workers to gather rubber, Belgian forces would use an inhumane method. It involved taking the wives and family members hostage. Each station in the Congo was equipped with a manual that included instructions on how to capture hostages to coerce local chiefs. These hostages could be anyone from men, women, and children to elders, or even the chiefs themselves. Every state or company station had a stockade designated for imprisoning these hostages. ABR agents, for instance, would imprison the chief of any village that failed to meet its rubber quota, leading to overcrowded and unsanitary prisons where death rates often reached alarming levels. Apart from the brutalities associated with rubber collection, violence in the Free State primarily manifested itself through wars and rebellions. The Force Publique employed great brutality to suppress native states like Masiri's Yeke Kingdom, the Zande Federation, and the Swahili-speaking territory under Tipu Tip during the Congo Arab War. Additionally, a military mutiny among the Batatela in Kasai in 1895 triggered a 4-year insurgency characterized by extreme violence and a high number of casualties. The presence of rubber companies exacerbated the impact of natural disasters such as famine and disease. ABIR's tax collection system forced men to leave villages for rubber collection, leaving insufficient labor to cultivate new fields, leading to decreased yields and widespread famine. The situation was worsened by company guards stealing crops and farm animals, aggravating the crisis. Under Leopold's rule, child colonies were established, where orphaned Congolese children were forcibly taken and sent to schools run by Catholic missionaries, with many succumbing to disease and harsh conditions. Similarly, non-Congolese labor was also exploited, with 540 Chinese laborers brought in to work on railways, resulting in high mortality rates due to accidents, lack of shelter, mistreatment, and disease. Additionally, Caribbean and other African workers employed for railway construction faced similar hardships, with a significant number perishing within the first 2 years. All this had started in 1885 when Leopold secured the consent of major European powers at the Berlin Conference to place 900,000 square miles of the Congo Basin under the control of his society, rather than Belgium. To implement this, Leopold directed that 2/3 of the entire country be designated as his private land, where inhabitants were not only prohibited from trading with anyone else, but were also obliged to supply goods at fixed prices set by the state. Enforcement of these mandates relied heavily on violence, with the threat of death looming over those who failed to meet the quotas. In a disturbing effort to conserve ammunition, officers of Leopold's Force Publique required one of the victims' hands for every bullet spent. The inflated rubber demands during the 1890s resulted in often unattainable quotas, leading to the chilling practice of collecting human hands, which soon became a symbol of the Congo's nightmarish reality. Disturbingly, this gruesome trade-off sometimes led to entire villages resorting to battles, presenting the Force Publique with dozens of hands as a substitute for their own rubber harvest. However, the increasing channels of communication and trade that facilitated this exploitation also enabled reports of the abuses to leak out. In 1900, the British government published a detailed memorandum highlighting numerous atrocities and maltreatment of laborers in the Congo, particularly those who had migrated from British territories. Consul Roger Casement, who later faced execution for his involvement in Irish POWs' fight against Britain in World War I, played a crucial role in bringing these atrocities to light. Reports from missionaries and journalists, notably E.D. Morel, revealed the extent of the atrocities in the Congo, prompting Britain to demand that Belgium intervene in the affairs of the Congo Free State. Until now, King Leopold II was controlling the Congo, but in 1908, the Belgian government assumed control of the Congo, by which time the atrocities under Leopold's regime had led to a significant decline in the population, sparking widespread outrage and the coinage of the term red rubber as a shorthand for the atrocities committed during this dark chapter. But Leopold had already exploited and looted Belgium enough. He had allocated significant portions of the Congo Free State to private companies, primarily with himself as the key stakeholder. These companies, through violent means and the manipulation of local authorities, ruthlessly extracted natural resources. Historians have highlighted the catastrophic impact of the rubber concessions granted during Leopold II's reign on the local communities. It is estimated that around 10 million people, roughly half of the Congo's population, perished between 1880 and 1920. One of these companies, the Abir Congo Company, operated in the Congo Free State, which was King Leopold II's personal property. The company acquired a substantial concession in the northern region, along with the right to levy taxes on the inhabitants. While the company was obligated to compensate villagers for supplying rubber, these payments were often made in goods rather than currency. The primary motivation for villagers to gather rubber was not the meager compensation, but the fear of punishment. The Belgian administration imposed a coercive tax system that deliberately pressured the Congolese into seeking employment with European employers to secure the necessary funds for these payments. Even after the Free State ended, the Congolese were compelled to provide a certain number of labor days annually for various infrastructure projects. The extensive loss of life during the Free State era has now sparked debates among scholars regarding whether these atrocities can be classified as genocidal or were primarily the result of severe economic exploitation rather than a deliberate extermination policy. Consequently, there are varying perspectives on whether the actions of the Free State constitute genocide. The United Nations 1948 definition of genocide says, acts committed with the intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group. Due to this stringent definition, many historians have refrained from using the term genocide to characterize the Free State's atrocities. In an unpublished manuscript, Raphael Lemkin, the creator of the term genocide, asserted that the Free State witnessed an unambiguous genocide. Some scholars, including Adam Jones, have pointed to the underrepresentation of males in Congolese population figures after Leopold's rule as evidence of outright genocide. Even if historians are hesitant to call these atrocities a genocide, because they are themselves Europeans, it's not hard for us to judge what it was. What King Leopold II and Belgium did in Congo found no other parallel. It's because in genocide like the Holocaust, the primary objective was to kill a religious or ethnic group. However, In the case of Congo, the objectives were not only to kill but profit from it, exploiting the resources of the dead. What do you think? Can Belgium have the audacity to defend that King Leopold II was bringing civilization to Congo? Isn't it true that history books never talk about King Leopold II, even if he carried a genocide bigger than the Holocaust? Let us know your thoughts on how wicked Europe was and perhaps has been. Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: the Black culture, civilization, history, and evidence about how glorious Blacks have been. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.